Hey, drivers, I want to welcome you back to the program. You know, when we were at Mid-America last week, a number of companies were out and about trying to recruit, which is understandable, of course. You know, that's a great place to go find drivers, and many drivers signing up and getting on board, going on board with the company that they were meeting at Mid-America. But, you know, you got to think about this for a number of reasons here, that sometimes the grass isn't always greener. And after an historic period of over 4 million people leaving their jobs late 2021, to pursue better opportunities, some may have what is called Quitters Remorse. What does that mean, Quitters Remorse? Does it mean, Joel Patterson, who's a workplace expert with the Vested Group, that some folks go to a new gig and they're like, oh my God, what did I do? Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Mark. Always good to be here. And yeah, you're exactly right. It's no different than what you teach your kids, and the grass is not always greener. And I think a lot of people that have jumped ship over the last, really it's in the last year, have regretted their decision for a lot of reasons. And it's funny because, well, not funny, it's interesting because the reasons are really, in a lot of ways, why people use for leaving a job in the first place. So they think they're improving on something. They think maybe they're probably going to get a raise. And really, at the end of the day, I think a lot of times that's what gets people to move. But that's not what they want to do once they get there. And it's really resulted in over 70% of people leaving and going back.
Oh, goodness sakes, that interesting numbers. I'd love to hear from you guys out there driving the truck. Ever leave a truck driving job and you get to another one, it's like, oh, man, what have I done? You know, obviously no names, but call in and let's share your story. And Joel, again, I appreciate you joining me on the program to talk about this. The Vested Group, that's the group you're with, right? What does that do?
We're in technology consulting, but, you know, what we're talking about today, really, it spans every industry. You know, a lot of times we talk about remote work and the Great Resignation and all these things that are happening in the world today. And oftentimes it's talking about white-collar jobs, but it's not just that. I mean, you talk about the guys on the road and the fleets and whether or not they're investing in the things that drivers need, you know, whether it's benefits, paid downtime, equipment, all of the things that are important to those guys. I mean, it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. What we're talking about here is it's a tight labor market. All employers know that. And now is a good time. If you have a feeling like you want to go somewhere, you should look. But the reality is you got to recognize that it may not be what you think it was going to be. And then you've got to face, all right, do I want to reach out to my old employer and see how they're doing and maybe see about them coming back? Sometimes that's a tough pill for both sides to swallow. And even though they might be best off together, it doesn't necessarily work out that way.
Well, and that's a good question. I mean, should the boss let them come back maybe at a cheaper rate? Is that something that's considered?
Well, I think that's going to be a tough pill. It's going to be a really tough pill. I think, you know, once you've gotten a little bit of a raise, it's hard to go back from that. Yeah. But it really comes down to what people like to say, hey, culture matters, purpose matters, engagement, what you're doing as an organization matters. But when you have money in front of you, sometimes it doesn't matter as much. And that's a personal decision. That's not a criticism. It's just, you know, what is the most important piece here? And they've got to make that decision on their own.
Should bosses question their loyalty? Is it fair to the other employees, in your estimation, if somebody comes back?
You know, that's the downside. So I can tell you, just this year, we've already had 2 what we call boomerang employees. So they left and they came back. And I will tell you, one of them specifically, we heard that he was on the market again, and he hadn't called us. And we were kind of upset about it. We're like, well, we had a really good experience. He actually left to go work with one of our clients. And once we reached out to him, we realized the reason he didn't reach back out to us is he felt a little sheepish about it. You know, I didn't feel like maybe that was an okay thing to do. And we're thrilled that he did. And I can tell you that, you know, it really comes down to your culture. But here, in our organization, everybody has welcomed him back with open arms.
Oh, wow.
It's not really about that. Everybody wants everyone to be able to grow and expand their skill set and make as much money as they possibly can. Sure. It really just comes down to how you do it and how you're welcomed back, and there's a right and wrong way to do that, really. And he did it the right way.
You know, I'm thinking about Tom Brady, who was with the Buccaneers, said, you know, he's out, going to retire, but 30 days later, he's back. So would you consider Tom Brady to be a boomerang employee?
He absolutely, he's the most visible one. But here's the difference, and I question this because it's a fascinating topic. But is he boomeranging because all of a sudden everybody wasn't talking about him, or was it because he was really unhappy with where he was at the moment? I don't know. I kind of feel like the former, but I'm not the biggest Tom Brady fan either.
Sure.
How does that work in his head? Who knows? Only him, because he's the greatest quarterback of all time.
Sure, no question about that. And again, it's this whole idea that, man, if you don't do your research before you're making that big leap, you think the grass is going to be a little greener. But once you jump over to the other side, it's usually AstroTurf or it's concrete. And then you kind of got that remorse about making that move in the first place. I got a break here for just a minute, Joel. Big Fat Daddy's going to weigh in on this from the road. And drivers, join us. Welcome in. Come on in. Be part of the conversation. You ever make a move? Have you ever left a trucking company and said, oh, damn, man, this is not for me. I need to do something else. Maybe try to get back into the company, or maybe go on to something else, or maybe get out of it altogether. It's something to think about. Talking about boomerang. My guest on the program, Joel Patterson. And we're talking about what is called Quitters Remorse, the Great Resignation. Quitters unhappy with their new gigs. Let's go to Big Fat Daddy on the phone with us. BFD, hello. That ever happened to you?
Oh, yes, twice.
Yep.
And I boomeranged back to the same company.
Okay.
Well, the first time I left because the boss wanted to pigeonhole me as a California only. And I just, no, I'm out of here.
Okay.
Although that was only just the final straw. The second time I left because I wanted to try my hand at different things like flatbedding and owner-operator.
Sure.
And both of those went down in a ball of flames. I have since come back, and at this point, I ain't leaving.
Well, nice. What have they done differently? Oh, I was going to ask you, what has changed?
What has changed?
What's made it better?
Well, the biggest change is the fact that, unfortunately, the boss had to come in to CG this moment with FMCSA.
Ew.
Yeah. And as a result, a lot of things have changed.
My goodness. Yep.
I mean, earlier he had me running flat out illegal. I mean, I wasn't outlaw. I was illegal.
Okay.
I mean, you can go 7 days and have 6,000 miles.
Oh, yeah. That's running you off the charts, and it becomes a safety issue. And again, no names, but is that person gone?
Well, yes and no. He was the owner, and he sold it to his brother, which was the dispatcher.
Gotcha.
I'm hoping the owner will do a boomerang, because his brother doesn't know how to dispatch.
Gotcha. Understood. Absolutely. And that can slow you down out there on the road trying to wait for dispatch to do their job. So you're saying that you've left twice but have gone back twice, and now it's working out for the better.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, the current boss, the owner, he has ambitious expectations of what this truck and I can do.
Okay.
So he's borderline on the illegal.
Okay, understood. All right, BFD, thank you. Let me get Joel to comment on that. Joel, that sounds maybe a little unusual, right? I mean, maybe it happens more than maybe a lot of folks may realize, but, leaving a company twice and coming back twice, what does that tell you in your estimation?
Well, I mean, a lot. I think, there's a lot of organizations that won't, twice maybe, or coming back the first time, but the second time, most companies will say, yeah, enough is enough. But I think what Big Fat Daddy had to say there about why he left the first time was because they were asking him to do things that weren't appropriate. And that's no different than anywhere else that you work. When you come in, or maybe it's the hours that you work, or it's somebody yelling at you, or it's, it's things like that I think at one point you could get away with more. But nowadays, with the tight labor market that we're in, with, under 4% unemployment in February, continuing to be very tight, inflation going up, you really have to make sure, especially those people that you care about. I mean, they obviously liked him too. They were willing to bring him back twice. So those are the people that you want to make sure you're taking care of and not ignoring them, because a lot of times your underperformers are the ones that you spend most of your time coaching.
You know, I would imagine that some people are going to say, I can't wait to get out of here. I'm done. See you. Man, I'm out. No notice whatsoever. And they're gone. Is there a right way and a wrong way to leave a company?
What you don't want to do is send them a text. and it's surprising how many times that kind of stuff happens these days.
Oh,
people don't forget. You know, even though the reason that even though if they call for a reference, technically they're only allowed to give dates of employment and whether or not they were rehirable. In most states,
Sure.
that's the only thing you can do. But you still want to, you want to leave them with a good feeling, right? And it's amazing how people can work for an organization for years and years, and they decide to leave, and then in the last month that they're there, they burn a bridge. And it's a sad way to end the situation. One thing I will tell you, for a really interesting idea that I heard the other day, if you have an employee that you think is going to leave, or maybe they are leaving, and as they are on their way out, and you're committed to them, give them an offer letter, like some kind of loosely written offer letter that says, hey, if within the next 90 days or whatever it might be, you think that you don't really like it where you wound up, you can come back. No questions asked. And I think that's a really powerful way to leave people with a good feeling as they leave your organization.
Oh, absolutely. Does the philosophy of a company change as managers change? Can one manager go in and say, somebody's leaving, we'll just get somebody else, but somebody else comes in and says, we've got to take care of the people that we've got, bring new people in, it promotes goodwill, promotes understanding, and things like that. Can that change with the wind, or where does that policy need to start? In the C-suite and work its way down? The uniformity.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, somebody has to take a stand, and really it becomes more about coaching and less about managing. I think that's a nice shift, and it's subtle, and some people think, oh, you're getting too soft or whatever, but really when you think about it, it's no different than a sports team, and nobody questions whether or not those guys are out there coaching their players. It's exactly the same thing in business. It's different in how you go about it, but it's the same concept. And if you are that coach for the people that report to you, you're getting the most out of them. They're growing. They're looking to expand their horizon and see their career take off. And really, that's really how you show your value, is what the people that report to you are doing. But I think we got a lot of work to do to get people on board with that.
You mentioned earlier Tom Brady coming back out of the Buccaneers. Howard Schultz, I think, former CEO of Starbucks, he's now back. And according to an article in LinkedIn, 4.5% of newly hired employees these days are returning workers. And, and I think it's going to get down to the philosophy of the boss, questioning loyalty. Is it going to be fair to the other employees that are out there? Joel, let me ask you this. You ever run into a situation where in your work life that you left for what you thought was a better job, but you came back to what you were doing?
Absolutely. Just like everyone, I chased some money. It was a few years out of college, and this is actually the kind of build up to Y2K, and the technology sector was going crazy. And I chased it, and I hated every second of it. I was there for 6 months. I didn't boomerang back. Actually, for me, it was an impetus to start my own business with a couple of other people. But that's really what you don't know where you're going to wind up. But when you recognize that that's not the place for you, I would tell you to fail fast and not try to let your ego get in the way. Well, I made this decision, so I'm stuck here. Really evaluate where you're going, because I don't know how long this labor market will last. There's got to be some relieving of it at some point. But I will tell you that I think that the people that have sort of leveraged the situation now, I'm not saying this is for everyone, but I think that have leveraged for whether it's increased benefits or salary or whatever it is, those are the people that are going to get they're going to be looking, the employers are going to look at them first when things shrink or when things slow down. You know what I mean? So just make sure you're doing things on the up and up. Be a good person. Live by your core values, and you'll be okay.
Outstanding. Joel, thank you, man. Let me get the website out there again. Where folks can find you, good sir. Where can they go? Got about a minute.
Mark, you can go to joelpatterson.com. That's the easiest way to find me. And if anyone out there knows what NetSuite is, that's the technology we work with, and we would love to talk to you. And I appreciate the time, Mark.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again. Thank you, man. That is Joel Patterson on the phone with us, and interesting story.